wanted to take a moment to introduce the ELL team. And so we have Rebecca Hartwick, who is responsible for Southeast Schools, Jennifer Larson, our Southwest Schools, Aurelia Minatoli Aiello, Northeast Schools, myself, Carrie Toussaint, Central Schools, and Dina Alexander, Northwest Schools. On top of that, we are blessed to have two ELL DDLTs. So we have Donette Stolarchuk and who you heard from just a moment ago, Mario Vergara. Our goals today include to discuss why wordless texts are great resources for English language learners. We will also present how wordless text can support language development and activities to consider when using wordless texts. And to start off, let's just take a moment. I know we're all out in different places right now to just pause and ponder. So just thinking to yourself, what role can wordless picture books play in literacy and language instruction with English language learners? Wordless text can be completely wordless or have minimal text embedded. You may also hear some people refer to wordless texts as wordless picture books as well. Wordless texts address themes and ideas that are accessible to all students. Themes that can be simple in nature or quite complex. These books speak to student experience and have the ability to teach new ideas. You may have thought wordless picture books are only for our younger learners, but my hope is that today I can show you ways in which that they can be effective learning tool for all age groups. Wordless picture books contain all the literary elements and text structures that books with text have. Wordless picture books, without the language demands, invite ELLs to share in the reading experience and to construct meaning from the viewing experience. Wordless picture books invite readers to become an active participant in the story. Asking questions teaches children and all of our students that clues to the story are not only found in the text, but also the illustrations. As this quote from Louis and Serginsky states, wordless picture books contain literary elements and structures in their visuals. We can teach English learners to engage in discussion, analysis, and production of their own text through close viewing. The targets for reading wordless texts are endless. All of us are quite passionate about them. So if you ever would like to chat more or just see where you could go with this, again, please reach out to any of us. You may support students in reading to identify the theme of the story, track the plot, develop characters, discuss mood and symbolism, or use clues to make inferences. The process starts with viewing and analyzing the visual images, engaging ELLs in discussions, and can progress to students' own self-authored texts. Through using language in discussion, analysis, inferencing, and questioning students, they can identify plot, theme, characters, setting. Teachers can use these elements of language to help students access the content. Students will be guided to use language to describe, sequence, retell, placing a focus on proper sentence structure. We can explore oral and written storytelling, highlighting and supporting students speaking to describe their learning. And the benefits of wordless picture books are broad and far-reaching. Wordless texts are accessible in any language and can be explored and enjoyed by all age groups, as wordless picture books vary by complexity. By lessening the language load, wordless picture books can be more easily processed. This allows students to engage in complex themes and higher level thinking that texts at their reading level may not encourage. Wordless picture books are great for encouraging a student's ability to infer what is happening in the story. The open-ended nature of these texts also challenge learners to work with ambiguity and be guided by their own thoughts and ideas rather than those outlined on the page. For students from many cultures, this is a challenge, and this can be a non-threatening way to practice and encourage independent thought. With no words for guidance, students use visual cues and their imagination to develop comprehension of the story and an understanding of context. Analysis and interaction with a wordless picture book supports listening, speaking, reading, and writing skills through the variety of different types of activities that will engage students. Wordless picture books can also be used to differentiate instruction. Beginner level learners can point out images on a page, while emerging students can tell details in more complex phrases, creating dialogue or retelling stories. Advanced students can retell the story from a certain perspective or analyze the actions of characters. Questions can also easily be differentiated by asking students to point to items on a page, answer yes or no questions, or answer more complex open-ended questions. This slide shows some titles of wordless texts. There are many, and their complexity based on theme. One way to read a wordless picture book could include exploring the cover, making predictions and inferences. You can use the wordless book to access your students' prior knowledge through their experiences with what they see. As teachers, we can model sequencing, analysis, reflection, and self-talk. Wordless picture books lend themselves to supporting students in discussing and identifying plot elements, summarizing the story, and offer opportunities for personal reflection. For these activities to be supported, we must allow time, multiple viewings, and guidance. We may begin by exploring and analyzing the book cover. This is a great opportunity to build vocabulary so that students are able to engage with the content. Teachers can create opportunities to encourage students to access their prior knowledge. Many English language learners will come with prior knowledge, and creating the space for a guided conversation with students will inform you about what students know and what background knowledge will need to be supported. Students can use inferences to support predictions, but also students can pose questions that can be reflected on and answered as they engage with the book. This is the cover of the wordless picture book called Migrants, created by Isa Watanabe. You could start by exploring the cover of this book by reading the title out loud to students and then supporting students through a guided conversation. I would pose these questions to students to consider independently first, and then invite them to join a partner to discuss, and then possibly lead a classroom discussion. I can access students' prior knowledge by asking, what do we see on the cover? What do you think the author wants us to know about the story? What do you think that this story might be about? Does this remind you of anything? Why do you think these animals are traveling together? Why do you think the animals are wearing clothes? By asking and guiding a conversation with students, these types of questions are supporting students with building vocabulary and accessing their prior knowledge. As teachers, we are supporting vocabulary that can be used by students to engage with the content. Gathering students' prior knowledge, we are also using this information formatively, building background knowledge where we see there may be gaps. Students can also be encouraged to make predictions and pose questions to help in understanding the content. Using the picture word inductive model, or PWIM, allows students to show you what they do know about the picture, what vocabulary they have, and what vocabulary they may still need to interact with the images in the book. PWIM can be used when discussing and then writing about any visual. PWIM is a strategy used to facilitate the brainstorming of vocabulary, creation of sentences, and then grouping sentences into paragraphs. This also can be used in any subject area where there are reluctant writers. The PWIM uses an inductive process in which students seek patterns themselves and use them to identify their broader meanings and significance, as opposed to a deductive process where meanings or rules are given by us and students have to then apply them. In the PWIM, and a large photo or a page within a wordless text is first placed in the classroom or given to partner groups of students. Students, along with teacher, together label objects in the picture. Students may start with labeling what they see, predicting what they may hear, or how they think characters might be feeling. Home language definitely should be encouraged to aid in making connections. This is the front cover of the wordless picture book called Wallpaper by Tao Lam. You can see in this use of PWIM, students have started identifying objects they see, some adjectives, and some home language has been used as well. By adding a sentence frame for students to fill in, students are able to expand those single word responses into simple pattern sentences, which also builds upon expanding their vocabulary. Through conversation with students' responses, teachers are able to expand students' vocabulary. A student may begin by labeling all the birds as just birds, and from this, a teacher or peers can add the specific names of the different types of birds. We can see a flamingo, toucan, a goose. You can also point out that there are plurals and that the plurals are flamingos, toucans, and geese. In this way, we're able to expose students to plurals and point out the features of these words. Students would then group words to form sentences and then categorize the sentences by common themes. They then combine alike sentences to form a paragraph. Beginning level ELL students can be given fill in the blank sentences and be asked to complete these or asked to just simply label objects. The goal would be for students to be supported from giving one-word answers to creating sentences with supports like sentence frames or sentence starters. Some students may only give one-word responses. Others are filling in a sentence frame. Some are expanding on a sentence starter, and others are creating their own responses. In this way, all students are working and being supported in engaging in this activity. This can also be done digitally or by giving students sticky notes to add onto the book. This is another example from Wallpaper. You can see that this student is focusing on adding adjectives. These short responses can then be supported with a sentence starter to extend them into a short, simple sentence. Further, we can add sentence frames for students to use to expand their response. The girl is pulling the paper. There are colorful flowers all around the girl. An opening activity can also involve exploring the inside layout or back cover of the book. This is the inside page from Wallpaper. Again, we can formatively assess the vocabulary knowledge students already have and take inventory of vocabulary students may need support with to fully access the book. These words can be pre-taught, for instance, explaining and showing what wallpaper is. You can ask students if they have ever seen wallpaper before. Have they ever seen wallpaper that is coming off the wall? You can also start making some predictions. What do you think is behind the wallpaper that you've seen? What do you think is behind the wallpaper in this book? What can you see? So we can gather students' background knowledge, make connections to their own life, build up needed vocabulary, and start making some predictions of what they think this book may be about. And then, when identifying and building up the vocabulary students are using in the book, graphic organizers and word walls are great tools to organize and also support the use of learned vocabulary. On the far left, there is an example of an alpha box. These can be given to students to alphabetically record vocabulary, and a large class size one can be ordered through the district's communication department. They have the template for it. In the center of this slide, you can see examples of some word walls that we've seen out in the district. Both have visuals added to them. These can and should be created by students. They can create the visuals, but also don't forget to point out to students that these word walls are for them. Encourage students to refer to them and to use them and access them when needed. You can also see a template for a student's personal dictionary in the bottom right corner. This one has space for the vocabulary word. Students can also add this word in their home language if they're able to. This helps make students make connections drawing on their prior and past knowledge. There's also space for a visual, image, or picture. Students can also add a definition or examples and non-examples. There is a Frere model in the top right corner. It can be used to identify the vocabulary word, leaving space for a definition to be created by students, identifying the characteristics of the vocabulary word, and listing synonyms, like I was saying before, so examples, and antonyms, non-examples. The expectations in each corner can also be altered depending on a student's language proficiency or ability. For instance, one corner could be a guided definition, then a picture, then a word being used in a sentence, and adding some home language. These Frere models can also be posted or referred to so students are involved and have a personal connection to learning these new vocabulary words. Also, a reminder that ELLs will begin by speaking using the vocabulary words and then writing with them. So if we can get students to speak using the taught vocabulary, they will be more inclined to use these words in their writing. Here's a closer up image of a student personal dictionary. Again, students have the vocabulary words, the word in their home language, a student created definition or meaning, examples, non-examples, pictures, other uses of the word, for instance, the plural of the word or past tense and future tense. And pre-reading discussion can also include gathering students' prior knowledge and background knowledge about the title. For the book Migrant, you can begin by talking about the title and providing some basic information through discussion. Through this discussion, teachers can pose questions to gather formative information that will guide instruction. This information can then be supported by providing more background knowledge through providing visuals or videos. Remember to allow for guided talk time to process this new information and record and present students' questions and predictions so that these can be referred to and discussed further as students delve deeper into the book. A question can be posed, what is a migrant? Allow time for students to access their prior knowledge and to have time to talk about their answers. Have you ever heard this word or a similar word before? Where or when have you heard it? Google is a great resource for students to access. Students can listen to the word and practice the pronunciation of the word. Google will also provide a definition and simple synonyms that can be discussed. A visual image and a video can be shown to support all levels of language proficiency. Discussion can also include what the vocabulary word is not. And again, that brings in the discussion of antonyms. Again, on Google, students can listen to the vocabulary word And it will also show a model of what the mouth looks like when pronouncing the word. And there is an opportunity for students to practice as well. When asking questions to gather that formative information, it's always helpful to record ideas as a reference point for students. These webs or lists can act as an additional word wall and can model sentence structure and vocabulary usage, as well as provide a springboard for conceptual thinking. What is an example of a time you have made a move? Why might someone migrate? Do you know of a time when someone moved to a new country? Do only people migrate? By engaging students in discussion, we as teachers are able to see and hear what they know. And then this formative information is so essential to guide our next step. Do they know it? Or do we need to backtrack a little bit and build up some more background knowledge? Building background knowledge can also be supported by just doing it. You may say to your class, today we are going to migrate to the Learning Commons to learn math. After moving and learning in a new environment, really experiencing that migration, discussion can include what was the experience like to move to the Learning Commons and learn math? What were the benefits? The good things that happened? What were the challenges? The things that didn't go so well? You can also then watch a video, mixing video and audio to support the vocabulary. Students can also participate in a gallery walk of visuals showing migration with guided questions they can discuss in small groups and then together in a large group. Discussion can also include gathering students' prior knowledge and background knowledge about theme. One of the themes in the text wallpaper is friendship. Ask questions related to the book's theme. What does it mean to be a good friend? What are characteristics of a good friend? What do good friends do? Through this discussion, teachers can pose questions to gather formative information that will again guide instruction. This information can then be supported by providing more background knowledge through visuals or videos. Allow for guided talk time to process this new information and record and present students' questions and predictions so that these can be referred to and discussed further as students delve deeper into the book. You can also start by making some predictions and recording these predictions for later check-ins. Using predictions is another way that you can do a first read through the book or stopping at the end of each page spread. Students can use sentence frames or starters to speak and then write when creating predictions about the content of the story. Encourage students to create questions that they have about the material, which can be revisited and answered as they engage more with the book. These sentence frames are excellent supports as they allow access into the conversation and then writing assignments by students of varying language proficiency levels. In my experience, as soon as I say to students that they cannot flip to the next page, no matter their age, they just want to flip the page. So take advantage of this excitement and make tons of predictions. Kate Kinsella has a nice instructional sequence for when students are introduced to a new vocabulary word. By following this sequence, it supports the intentional teaching of the word. It begins by showing the student the word, either write it on the board or point at the word on the word wall or alpha box when referencing it. You then would pronounce the word. I would say the word and then ask students to say the word back to me, and then ask students to turn to the person beside them and say the word to their partner. This is the I do, we do, you do strategy. It's worth taking a moment to clarify also the part of speech, saying this word is a noun or whatever it happens to be. Give students time to discuss synonyms, example of what the word is, and also antonyms, non-examples of that word. You can also add an image to make the vocabulary word visible to students. This can also happen by showing a short YouTube clip to show the word in context. And the last part of the sequence is to assess students' comprehension. And this can be done, it doesn't have to be done summatively, but very formatively in all these small moments of structured student talk that you are providing. And so showing that process a little bit in context, we have a word here. So you can use a variety of modes to teach this new word. So it definitely takes minimal amount of time to prep and teach, but it really teaches the new word in a strong way. So I would start by writing this word on the board. I then would say the word. This word is chiasmus. So everyone out there, if you can say it with me, chiasmus. Now turn to the person beside you or out into the air and say it, chiasmus. Many times we ask students to look the word up in the dictionary and write the definition. So this definition is a literary device in which there is repetition of similar ideas or words in a reverse sequence. Okay, for some students, this may be enough. I know for me, this was not enough when I first was learning this word. So we can add a meme, or students can create a meme with the word. This one says, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Okay, you can also show a visual representation. A is to B as B is to A. Okay, we can add on to that. I can add this one from the Bible. Whoever exalts himself will be humbled. Whoever humbles himself will be exalted. You can also show a quick video of this. Now, this is a commercial that will completely date me, but please sing along wherever you may be right now. I am stuck on Band-Aid brand because Band-Aid's stuck on me. And I can just imagine there's some great singing out there. I'm not quite sure if I heard Mario singing here beside me. Maybe he was. Some giggling, he said. I can show another example. Success is getting what you want. Happiness is wanting what you get. And you can also show non-examples as well. I may not have been able to understand chiasmus from simply writing out the definition, but after multiple exposures to the meaning and multiple experiences where I can use the word, I'm able to internalize this meaning. Sentence frames and vocabulary can be posted and used to guide conversation to support student engagement. As teachers, we do an excellent job giving students sentence frames or a sentence starter when completing writing assignments, but they are just as effective in supporting speaking when responding. For English language learners and many other learners as well, the experience of speaking will support them in being able to write. These sentence frames are also modeling and providing exemplars for a variety of cohesive devices and transition words we would like to see students using, keeping in mind that many cohesive devices, specifically higher level ones, are not part of natural speaking, so students will only come in contact with them at school through our support. In this way, we are giving students the language needed to agree with a classmate, or disagree with a classmate. Students are then supported to make a prediction and the language needed to defend their choices. And allow lots of time for student structured talk through activities. Why should we allow time for student structured talk? Well, the interaction and collaboration will support deeper understanding of concepts. Conversation will help students to clarify, refine, and apply their thinking. Structured talk time will also build student confidence and also competence. Other benefits of talk time include it allows ELLs to use their strengths to access new information. It increases student engagement. Talk time allows teachers to easily gather formative assessments. Talk time promotes academic dialogue and writing, and it provides that much needed processing time, which improves student output. Talk time doesn't have to be formally planned. It can be as simple as posing a question and using the think, pair, share strategy, or turn and talk to the person beside you. Sentence frames can be given to students to support their response. Playing a game like Hot Seat, so it's very similar to headbands, where one student sits at the front of the class with their back facing the board. A word is held behind the student, so they are unable to see it, and the class gives hints, and they're speaking through these hints to the student in order to guess the word. Students can also create a top 5 list discussing and recording what they know about the topic. Engaging students in discussion with a partner. Would you rather questions are also a fun way to engage students in talk. There are no wrong answers, and students can use those sentence frames to guide their response. Talk time activities can include sorting, sequencing, ranking. I love the ranking activities because there are no wrong answers. What's the top word in the unit we've been studying? Can you defend why you think that way? Students can be given the opportunity to respond to a visual prompt. Brainstorming and hands-on activities will also initiate student talk. We can explore some more specific talk time activities like, for instance, providing a visual or realia, asking which does not belong. Sentence frames can be given to students to support all successful access into that response. Tarsi puzzles will also ignite conversation. They are that example in that top left-hand corner. Tarsia puzzles are a jigsaw activity form of puzzle that students have to solve. In a Tarsia puzzle, each piece has a question or answer in it. As students match the pieces together correctly, answers to questions are revealed. Games like telephone start with one student choosing a word to start a sentence, phrase, or story. As they pass this on to the person beside them, each person adds on to the initial word, creating a longer message. This encourages students to listen and provides a frame for students to add on to. It can be really funny to see what the message ends up at the end. A quick, versatile vocabulary building game is Name 5 Things. A topic or letter is chosen, and the students list or name 5 things that have to do with the chosen topic. For example, the teacher could say, Name 5 animals. And in groups, students could collaborate to create a list and raise their hand to share when ready. Vertical non-permanent surfaces get students out of their desks. They stand as a group or a partner group and discuss a question, synthesizing by talking through different ideas. Would you rather responses, again, can be verbally responded to, or students physically move their location to indicate preference. We can also add a written response by giving students a graphic organizer to record their thoughts on why they would prefer one over the other. This can then lead to students using a sentence frame or sentence starter to record in writing their ideas. A link will be placed in the chat to this cooperative learning desktop companion, which lists different activities that can support structured student talk in the classroom. I would suggest picking one activity and then using it in multiple contexts so students get the hang of the activity. You could then move on to another one. And so now we can start with let's get right into the reading. And you'll notice I have reading in quotation marks because really there aren't words there. We're just going to be creating some meaning from the visuals that we see. So give opportunities for students to do an initial read through the book by examining features of the pages. Students can discuss and be led to questions that they see, taking time to create a story plot, identifying characters and the setting, and possible themes. Through a first reading, teachers can model self-talk and questioning that is used when reading through the Wordless picture book. Characters can be identified and discussed, promoting vocabulary. Use verbs and adverbs to discuss the action. Teachers can pause to highlight the theme, imagery, and tone. And many wordless texts have book trailers posted online. A book trailer combines audio and visual components to deliver a multimodal experience compared to only just the text or graphics. Book trailers can be used as a hook at the beginning of reading the wordless book or as a culminating activity to be created by students as an end of unit project. A book trailer project is a digital storytelling activity where students take the key idea from the book to create a short video that persuades people to check out a book they have read. This is a book trailer for migrants, and we're going to be watching it. And as you watch and listen, consider questions you may ask students while viewing it. Point out features of the music. Direct students to close view the animals, the clothes they are wearing, the lighting in the book. Okay, now you're going to have to bear with me because technology and me want to be friends, but we aren't always. So I'm going to try and see if I can share this properly, and hopefully you can enjoy this. So please say a little prayer where you are. Let's see if this works. Sure. Yeah. And now let's see if I can actually get us back. There's going to be the true test of my abilities here. Let's see. Okay, and I think we're all the way back at the beginning. Is that correct? Or, okay, perfect. Let's see. Thanks again, everybody, for your patience here. Okay, so mine. Yeah, okay. Thanks, everybody, for your patience. I'm just going to go. It didn't give me an option to come right back to where I was. So this maybe can give you a little bit of time to think about what some of those questions you might use as you are showing a book trailer in there. I know I find the visuals with movement, but then also adding on some audio, some music in there as well, really helps bring a message of the tone and what the theme of this is going to be. And I apologize again. We're getting there. We're getting there. There we go. Perfect. Thank you. Um, like I said, the culminating activity can also be then to go back and create something like this. And I know kids are really engaged with activities like that as well. So after you have completed a first read, supporting students through a glimpse into the book, allow them time to explore the book by themselves or in groups to retell the story and develop the story on their own. Through such activities, our EL students can do a great job of engaging with content matter and work on developing their English language proficiency. Some of the wonderful activities you can do is have your students explore oral and written storytelling, make personal connections to a book like Migrants. They can practice sequencing, retelling, and summarizing, supporting them to develop engaging games. Engage in listening, speaking, reading, and writing activities. It is so important to have our ELLs explore all four strands of English language when involved with a book. Students are able to engage in higher level thinking. And I think that's so important because sometimes we're using a text at an ELL's reading level, and it doesn't quite have the same complexity. When using wordless text, we can access all of these higher level skills because language is now not an obstacle. As students work to develop their own take on the story, it's important for them to have access to the book so that they can really take a look at the details of the imagery, being intentional about their exploration of the story as a whole. When you look at the page spreads all together, it's through this that students are able to practice and develop those narrative storytelling skills. Cohesive devices such as first, then, next, or in the blink of an eye, all of a sudden, can be used to model transitional phrasing. Give students opportunities to practice by speaking using them, and then from there, writing using them. Or you might just choose to delve deeply into a single spread to explore an event more fully. Focus students' attention to understand the characters, relationships between them, the action taking place, or the author's purpose. With so much to explore in an image like this, students could probably write a story from this page alone. Oops, sorry. Students can summarize a story using a telling table or storyboard. Some students love hearing about possible careers associated with things they like to do or are good at. I always speak to students about how people who write books or movie scripts create a storyboard first. In this way, students who have been beginning level proficiency may be completing a provided sentence frame. Other students may be using a sentence starter, and others are writing independently. As students move through the book, you can stop them and direct them to give a synapse of what they have discussed so far. Students could write these mini summaries on a sticky note and then add each onto the storyboard. And that, putting them all together, can present the whole of the story. Images from the book can also be used to allow students to show the beginning, middle, and end of the story shown only through images. A really fun interactive way to use wordless text supporting English language learners is by developing games that help them to explore the book and expand their English language skills. Creating and also solving riddles like "Who am I?" or playing a game of "I Spy" to explore descriptive language. You can also pose true or false statements or play a game of charades that allows students to act things out. All of these activities are really engaging and encourage students to take supported risks and show what they know. In this "Who am I" riddle, you can provide ELLs with sentence frames or starters and model the process for them. Challenge them to identify who the question is identifying by giving those clues for, or having them verbally or write out clues themselves and trade them with a partner. For instance, I am in the middle of the group. I have large ears. I am wearing a blue skirt. Who am I? You are the rabbit because she has large ears, is wearing a blue skirt, and is in the middle of the group. Many of our newcomers may never have played I Spy. Students of all ages will love it, but will need support in understanding the game and the language to use in it. A sentence starter, again, can be given to students to model the language. So, I spy with my little eye something that is, what am I? You are a, because. This is a great activity to help build experience with the vocabulary. A great way to target specific outcomes and support English language learning is providing mini lessons targeting these throughout the unit. Here we have the exploration of dialogue. You could have a lesson about dialogue, talking about punctuation, the purpose, and the effect dialogue can have on moving a story forward. Have students either write out or act out the dialogue that they can imagine between the characters in the book. You can ask, what do you think the characters are saying to each other? What makes you think they're saying that? Are they happy to receive this information? What is the symbolism behind this picture? Another mini lesson could focus on how the character is saying their dialogue. Brainstorm different ways of writing or explaining the word. Said, the dreaded said word. The girl may have screamed, yelled, cried, panted her dialogue. You can then question students, how might the frogs be saying their dialogue? How about the monster? Choice boards are another excellent resource that provides students with the power to choose how to learn a particular subject or concept. This freedom encourages them to be more responsible, accountable, and independent in their learning. It also allows them to work on the activities at their own pace. This choice board is not made for just one of the books. It could be used as a guide for any wordless text. Education researcher and author Robert J. Marzano suggests narrowing academic choice down to focus on three key areas: choice in the tasks that students perform, choice in assessment, and choice in learning goals. Marzano writes in his blog that choice in the classroom has been linked to increases in student effort, task performance, and subsequent learning. However, to reap these benefits, a teacher should create choices that are robust enough for students to feel that their decision has an impact on their learning. Using wordless picture books in your classroom to support ELLs is a great way to engage them in the speaking, reading, listening, and writing activities around a common theme. As students increase their confidence around the concepts, they will expand their vocabulary and they will practice the language you are targeting, urging them towards written output. When ELLs are producing writing, we want to provide appropriate scaffolds and supports to ensure their success. On this slide, we have a plot diagram, which is really tied tightly to the language arts curriculum. But for a newer English language learner who doesn't quite have all of that language yet, you may want to use a graphic organizer such as Somebody, Wanted, But So. There, they can identify the major components of the story in a fairly simplistic way. If you're targeting a specific outcome like character, you could use a Frere model and change the expectations to have students organize ideas around a character, including things like characteristics of that character, actions that they did. You can include things like adding a visual, thinking about mood. In any graphic organizer, encourage students to create or provide images and use their home language to respond. Again, in this way, students are able to connect past and present knowledge and learning to help internalize the information. Here is an example of how you can support students in making personal connections to the text through written output. This lesson is encouraging students to create a Venn diagram to compare and contrast their journey to Canada to the animal's journey in the migrant book. A Venn diagram guides students to organize their ideas and statements. In addition to this, we would want to provide key vocabulary terms related to compare and contrast. Another support that is provided in this example are sentence frames. Depending on the English language proficiency of your students, you might find that they're able to use this graphic organizer to organize their ideas and then later develop the ideas into a paragraph or an essay. And for some, they might just work on the Venn diagram and compare and contrast within that structure. This then becomes the assessment for some of our students. You can add technology into activities as well. As I spoke of earlier, students can create their own book trailer using iMovie. They may write dialogue and use a green screen to act out the scenes. Students could create a Kahoot game to test knowledge, or even use stop motion animation to summarize the story and sequence events. On EPD, we have a section dedicated to wordless picture books. You can get there by visiting the Diverse Learning ELL EPD page, then click on Instructional Strategies, then Visuals and Vocabulary, and then click on Wordless Picture Books. On here, you will find summaries and activity guides and some supporting resources for the Wordless Picture Books housed at IMC as well. This is what a sample unit plan with links looks like. There are links to resources we found online, such as sample unit plans. We also added the theme, conflict found in the book, literary devices, and a synapse of the book to get you started. Activities can be differentiated to accommodate the different language proficiency of students in your classroom. All students can listen to, respond, and write using words. Level ones and twos can focus on words related to maybe, possibly emotions, colors, descriptive vocabulary created from reading the book. Level ones and twos can write the sequence of the story using words such as first, then, after, lastly. Students can also use adjectives to describe the pictures that they are viewing. Level 3 students can focus on words related to mood, theme, and plot of the story. These students can summarize the story using a graphic organizer, like the one I mentioned before, somebody wanted but so, and also can follow a pattern to create a who am I riddle. Level 4 students can focus on words used in response to the theme, maybe some symbolism, and the imagery created in the story. Students can use a graphic organizer to describe the conflict and solution found within the story, and students can also add speech bubbles to add dialogue between the characters. There are a variety of supporting resources for all wordless picture books that can be found free online. These free resources offer a synapse of the picture book and many different activities you can consider using. And on this slide here, these are just some of the great titles to consider using. These titles can be found at IMC through Insignia or through the public library, or they can be student created. Or you can also go on to goodreads.com to look for other possibilities. The IMC team have created a Google slide presentation of ELL resources, including kits of wordless picture books with a link to their booking system for each item. I know Mario just popped that link into the chat there. And so we want to take a moment to thank you for joining us today, for choosing, to spend your time with us in this session on how wordless text can be used to support English language learners in the classroom. I encourage you to take some time to explore some of the resources we have shared here today and book one of the many wordless texts we have housed at IMC and give it a try. I know you and your students will really enjoy the experience. And again, if you have questions moving forward, please don't hesitate to reach out to your school's ELL consultant. We are all really passionate about how these books can be used with all age groups to support, but also to be accessible to all levels of language and abilities of students. And just a reminder to please fill out the feedback form link that you received in an email when you registered. We're going to stop the recording and stay on to answer any questions that you may have, but feel free to unmute and turn on your camera when we do stop the recording. And for those that are ready to start exploring, Mario has been adding links into the chat for you to access. So I hope you have a wonderful end to your day. And I look forward to reaching out and hearing about some of your experiences with wordless texts. So I'm just going to stop that recording.